So today is February 14th, that's Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day everyone. So I thought I would do something special to celebrate the holiday. So we're going over my top 5 favorite ships. So let's begin with the Enterprise. Just kidding. I actually did consider doing that as kind of a clickbait video, but you know what? I'm actually going to give you guys my top 5 favorite fictional ships. So, you know why? It has become very popular to ship fictional characters. In case people don't know what shipping is, so this is how I define shipping. It is the act by fans, but sometimes even the creators, of thinking two characters would make a nice couple, often in the forms of fan art and fan fiction. That's kind of how I would define it. But it can be just people chewing the fat on Reddit or all that stuff, saying, hey, when of these two make a nice couple? Sometimes as simple as that. But I'm going to begin with a little bit of background. One of the first ships out there that I'm aware of in pop culture came from Star Trek, that being the shipping of Kirk and Spock, often written as Kirk/Spock or sometimes Spock/Kirk. Of course, nowadays when we do shipping, we do a lot more things like nicknames for characters. Think Reylo from Star Wars, Kylo Ren, so Kylo, and then Rey, so Reylo. That's how we get that. So nicknames are much more common nowadays. Of course, going back to Cook and Spock, I didn't ship them. You know why? Cook is so much in love with the Enterprise. I can't think of him having any other love but the Enterprise. Plus, I am a straight man, so my preferences for shipping is going to reflect that. It's going to reflect, if you will, my bias. Plus, as a straight man, my ships, or at least the ships I find I enjoy, my favorite ships, are generally going to reflect my bias and all that. Not totally, but it will reflect that. Yeah, and this actually kind of makes some sense because many of the early shipping were done by queer fans of properties, LGBTQ plus, I forget what the acronym is now, but it was done by them because they were not getting representation in the actual relationships being explored by the show, so they would make relationships that they could identify with. And it was fan shipping, but they created it because they were looking for relationships they could relate to. Nowadays, nearly everyone does shipping, and even back then, it was never limited to just queer. But in terms of shipping as we understand it now, you could trace it all the way back to the queer community looking for representation. So it does make sense that anyone shipping are going to go with ships character couplings that they feel are going to that they're going to relate to. And of course, there's a few other things too. If a couple is introduced as a couple, especially in the first appearance, that is not a ship. It's just not. I'm just going to use the Brady Bunch. The Mr. and Mrs. Brady, that's not a ship. They're introduced as a couple, so it can't be a fan ship. By the same logic, though, that does not always mean couples can't be official ships and also be shipped by people as well. A good example of this, let's go with Kanan and Hera from Star Wars Rebels. It's pretty much established that they were a couple early on, but it was not official until pretty much season 4. So that's something kind of interesting there. And another thing too, you can even have characters shipping characters. I mean, the Parent Trap is a good example. Literally, the twins literally shipped their parents and got their parents back together. That's essentially shipping in many ways. So, before I go into my top 5 ships, I'm just going to say once again, people like ships they can see themselves in. And as such, that's going to be reflective of their ships. And you'll see that reflective of my ships as well. So, let's go on with my list. So, my number 5 ship is going to be Reylo, or more accurately, I should say, Ben and Rey. Because I'm not a big fan of Reylo, because Kylo Ren, not good for Rey at all. But Ben, so post-redemption when he's redeemed, I think there could be a good fit for Rey. But we never got the chance to learn would it be a good fit, like his character after his redemption, truly after his redemption, in defeating Palpatine. We don't know what that is. Kind of same thing with Rey, but that would have been a healthier ship because they could relate to each other. Kylo, no, but Ben, yes. It does rely on his redemption, but it is a important facet, if you will. It needs to be a healthy relationship. So in my number 4 spot, well, this is from Madam Murphy's Law, Zach and Melissa. I mean, it's just so perfect. They do kind of build up to it, of course, so it does become semi-official by the end of season 2, but it's not official. But it is just a nice little thing that they did build up to, and I really wish Malcolm Murphy's Law was still on the air. It only got 2 seasons on Disney Plus, but it on Disney XD or channel, wherever it was on. But it is on Disney Plus now, so if you want to go watch it for free, I encourage you. It's a very good show. But yeah, that was just a nice little ship there, and I like how it developed organically over the show. And probably even most fans may not have always picked up on it because it was done very organically, in my opinion. So my number third spot, it comes from the DuckTales 2017 reboot. So my original favorite ship from that show does not work anymore because of the review in The Last Adventure, which I still need to do my review on. It's been a couple years. I gotta get on that. But now my favorite ship, there's not too much in terms of stuff in the show itself. Like these characters really don't seem to show that much affection for each other. Rather, I think these two characters have a potential of making a good pairing. That being Huey Duck and Violet Saberwing. I do think they could make a good couple. They're both intelligent, but they're also intelligent in different ways. Huey, in many ways, I read as being somewhere along autism. Not so with Violet, but I feel like their strengths and weaknesses could complement each other nicely to make a good story, a good and all that. They could make a good pairing. The potential is there, and that's why I like it so much. So that brings me to my number 2, and this is actually from Star Trek Lower Decks. Tindy and Rutherford. I mean, come on, the subtext is strong there, and I think it's on the way, and we'll probably see it a little bit in season 3. They care about each other. There was one episode where the chief engineer's mother was there, and pretends to get herself and by extension Rutherford killed to convince the chief engineer to take over the throne. It's a complicated thing there, but like the thing is, who's the first person Dr. Tiana tells about Rutherford's alleged death? Tindy. That's no coincidence there. There's definitely a closeness between the two that I think could blossom to be so much more. And I think they're setting it up there, but I really do love what I'm seeing there. And before we go into my number 1, well, let's get a bunch of honorable mentions out of the way. So, the first 2 I'm going to mention are from The Owl House, another great show. Episode 2 of Season 3, For the Future, just dropped on Disney Plus, so if you want to watch that for free, it's a very good show in my opinion. So, beginning my honorable mentions from there is Luminty, which is Luz and Amity's. By the time I got into the Owl House, they were already an established couples. That's why I couldn't put them at my number 1. So many other Owl House fans would. But so for me, I kind of was introduced to them already being a couple from when I got into the fandom and all that. And also from the house, which is actually from Things for Them, and it's subtle. It's a blush, and it's a post-credit sequence. Oh, a credit sequence, not post-credit. Just actually drawing in the credits. Varsha, which is V and Marsha. You probably may not even know who V is. That's a basketballist who took Luz's place in the human realm. And Marsha was a character introduced in Things for Them. It's just a cute little couple there, especially all the fan stuff of it. Oh, so many good fan comics there. So let's go on to a honorable mention from Star Wars, and that being Stone Pilot, which is Finn and Poe. I can see it right there, but at the same time, like, I see it, but I don't see it. Does that make sense? I enjoy it for what it is, but at the same time, I feel like neither of those characters actually would bother pursuing a relationship, which is weird. That I should say is, everyone knows that they are a couple, but nobody says it, including them. They just act like that. That's the kind of relationship I see there, which is a very good relationship to explore, if you will. And the next one, of course, is from Phineas and Ferb. There's a couple shipping zeros that we could touch on, but I'm going to go with my favorite from Phineas and Ferb, which is Finn and Bella. I mean, there's no other option there, really. Doof and Perry, come on. Weirdly enough, they did do an episode where it's a parody of couples counseling between Doof and Perry. So there's that. But Finn and Bella is just a cute ship, but it's also something that they did. It is an official ship, and they do eventually get together and act your age. But what makes it work is, I think it reflects nicely on it. They're just kids, so you have childhood crushes, so one person is going to be totally oblivious, and not until both of them are older, until they're going off to college, they're basically young adults, are they capable of even acknowledging their feelings to each other properly. They're just kids for the most of the show until they act your age special, which is set in the future. that's a time where they were old enough to actually, admit their feelings to each other, acknowledge it. As kids, Phineas was totally oblivious, and Isabella was just a crush. It was just a crush. It wasn't something that had matured yet, and they weren't mature enough to recognize it in each other, if you will. And then my last one is also from Mallow Murphy's Law, that being Mallow and Amanda. It's just a nice little ship there. It's cute, and oh man, it I really just like how it blossomed over the course of the show, mainly in season 2. But essentially how it worked, for that better term, is it makes it works because Mallow is a walking disaster, basically, because of Murphy's Law, and Amanda is big into keeping things neat and organized. So you think it wouldn't work, but somehow it does work. Mainly by what you can tell what Amanda appreciates Mallow is how prepared Mallow is for the chaos. That's what she can appreciate. And we got that in Kicksplosion. That was a good episode. But let's go on to my number 1 now. What's my number 1? Well, it's also from the Owl House, that being Huntlow, sometimes called Winter, which is Hunter and Willow, which got confirmed in the most recent episode. I already mentioned them for the future. This ship, some people were not that big into it, but it was probably one of the first ships in the show that I really started liking and wanting to see come to fruition within the show. There's other ships that I've mentioned, some already did, but by the time I got involved, Luminity, as I said, was already an established ship, but this was the one that I really appreciated. I think because I appreciate and I see myself in Hunter's awkwardness. You can tell he's awkward in the affairs of relationships, which I see myself in a lot. Yeah, I see that nervousness in myself. It's, I think, part of the reason why I have never really pursued a relationship, because I just don't feel like I'm comfortable at this stage of my life, if you will. Probably the best way of looking at it. But I do see myself in though, and that's why I think is my favorite ship. As I said earlier, people made ships oftentimes because they want representation they can relate to. Well, for me, I never really had to worry about that being a straight guy. Representation for the kinds of relationship I could imagine myself in were all over the place in media. But that still doesn't mean that I can't relate to some ships more than others. Because, sure, there's plenty of heterosexual couplings all over media. It's pretty common. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean there's other characteristics that can be important. Maybe someone who's kind of who's there's some kind of reminds me of someone who's autistic, someone who's nervous. I can relate to that. Not everyone can. So that's kind of what I'm getting at there. It's my favorite ship because it's the one I think I can relate the most to. But what are your favorite ships? That's what I would love to hear from you about. So feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Again, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And going on in the future, I'm going to try to do more holiday specials like this. I've done Christmas, but I should definitely try the other holidays as well. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like, upvote, and share. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Have a good one. Bye!